Factor 2. An economy of bubbles. When children blow bubbles, they expand to a point and then they burst. As we see it, that's an apt definition of the American economy today. A simple definition of a bubble would be any sector of the economy that gets far out of sync with the real growth of the GDP and threatens other sectors. We've seen the bursting of large bubbles during the past decades. The savings and loan bubble, the dot-com bubble, and most recently, the housing bubble. Rather than learning from the mistakes of the past, it appears that we have chosen to compound them. Consider some of the following bubbles that threaten the stability of America and the world. Perhaps the biggest bubble of all is the federal government. Our national debt has now grown to nearly $20 trillion, a number equivalent to $65,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. In just 7 years, the national debt has increased by almost $7 trillion. And today, the federal government is spending more than $1.3 million every single minute of every day that it simply doesn't have. We also see bubbles in many other sectors of the economy. For instance, in 1960, the total amount of health expenditures in America represented about 4% of the gross domestic product. Today, that number is at 18% and rising rapidly. In a world of higher education, the same thing has transpired, as tuitions and costs have risen faster than the GDP for years. The result is that student debt has now surpassed even the total credit card debt in America, and millions of younger people wind up living with their aging parents because they simply cannot afford an independent lifestyle. Despite the very recent housing crisis that almost sank the American financial system, we've seen housing prices once more soaring in America, particularly during the past 2 years, with a result that in many markets, houses are just as expensive today as they were prior to the crash. Further, the cost of rentals has also soared in recent years. A bubble of sorts that is rapidly deflating is the middle class in America, particularly among the blue-collar middle class, due to the shifting of sustaining jobs to offshore factories. Real income growth in America has simply not kept pace with the demands, and today millions of people are forced to work multiple part-time jobs just to survive. There are other bubbles too. The auto industry in the past decade has rapidly inflated prices. The internet has expanded at phenomenal levels, threatening brick and mortar retailing, communications, and other sectors of the economy. When we look at all of these bubbles, we cannot avoid the conclusion that major change is on the very near horizon.